In our last video, we explored how to send data in our variables to a function that we are doing in a call. So we used greeting. We are calling a function called greeting, and we're sending it these values that are in username and the value that's in age. And we're sending it to the function that we called. That function's receiving the data in these variables so that it can use these variables here in the function. We decided that, for example, this is from some practicing that I was doing before the video. We decided that for some reason, we don't have access to variables that are declared in another function. In other words, I don't have access to username. Let's try user age this time. So if I tried to print out user age, I'm going to get an error. And it's 21, of course, and I got an error because this particular variable name is declared inside main and it's not declared inside greeting, which is why I have to put in the age instead. So let's talk about this a little bit. Why is that? Well, when we write functions, we write them, remember we talked about them being self-contained. The idea is that it doesn't have to depend on anything else except itself. So that if, this is the idea of reusing code, if someone else from another program utilized our function, it's going to work in someone else's code because it's self-contained. And therefore it can't rely on variables that might have been created somewhere in this program. So we want to keep, and you'll see why this is more important as we move on into some other chapters later on. But for now, I just want you to get that concept that because this is self-contained, we even want to self-contain the variables that we need to use within it. So if we're going to declare variables, for example, if we want to declare the age is an int, and we've been declaring our variables because it's good practice, so I would set the age equal to 0 ahead of time. Oh, actually, no, I wouldn't, because this is actually declaring the variable, so I don't want to set it to 0. So this would definitely be a mistake, because really what I'm doing here is declaring a variable that is receiving a value from some other function call. So if you were to utilize another variable, maybe I don't really have an example off the top of my head, but maybe I wanted to do day of the week is equal to blank blank, and then maybe I would ask them, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense, but it's just to get a point across, print input, let's see, day of the week is equal to input, what day is it? No, this really doesn't make sense, but it's just to get a point across. And the point is that if I'm going to use another variable within this function, not one I received as an argument, but one that I'm going to be using just within this particular function, then I could declare it at the beginning of this function. Because again, this variable is only available to this particular function. Okay, kind of a silly example, but I'm hoping that it gets the point across to you. Okay, so far so good. Well, let me throw this caveat at you. I'm going to comment this out for the moment. If I have, let's take this day of the week. Actually, I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it up here. So this day of the week is declared outside of these functions, which means it's available outside of these functions. So if I print day of the week down here, this isn't in any function, so this variable would be available to a print statement here. I told you that any variables that exist outside of the function are not available to that function. Well, in Python, that's almost true. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to put a value in here just to demonstrate a point. So it turns out in Python that I can print out that, let me just type it, day of the week. In Python, if I'm not doing anything with it except printing it, then it is available to me here in this program, in this particular function. So this should work. And let me just demonstrate that. 21. And then you can see that Monday printed. So if I'm not making any changes to Monday and all I'm doing is printing, then I can have access to variables that are outside of this function. This is called a global variable. So I'm going to use this term global. Global is defined outside of the function and available to, and by available I mean its data is available to anybody that wants to use it. So it's global in scope. These variables are called local in scope because they're only available locally to this particular function. Once I leave the function, this variable disappears and nobody has access to it anymore. So in this case, day of the week is global and I can print it out. What I can't do, however, is as soon as I try to assign day of the week to a different value. In other words, here I'm trying to assign day of the week a new value. As soon as that happens, this goes out of scope. I don't have access to it anymore. So now when I run it, you're going to see that I get an error. Because as far as Python's concerned now, see this local variable? Because I'm trying to give it a value, because I'm trying to assign it a new value, it thinks that it's a local variable and it doesn't understand where to find it. And so if I change this back to a local variable, now I can make an assignment to it. So now it should be okay. And I'm in fact getting Monday because that's what I set it to. So it's printing out Monday. Okay, and then it's asking me for a new day of the week. So I know that's all a little confusing, but the main concept right off the bat is if I want a variable, I should use a local variable that's available from right within my function. Okay. The only other exception to that, and this is I'm going to just give you the whole gamut and then tell you the things that I really think you should focus on. So going back to the same example where, let's see, we're going to put day of the week back up so it's global in scope. It's available to everything, all of this code. It's available to this function as long as I don't try to make an assignment, which I have done here. So this will fail because I've got a global variable that I'm then trying to do something with, but I haven't, it's not defined locally. The only exception to that is maybe for some reason I want day of the week to be available to both of these. Maybe I want it to be global in scope. I want it to be available within, in other words, if day of the week got changed here, I would like to be able to print it out here. Print day of the week. And since it got changed in this function, I really want that change to be reflected in all of these functions. And so the only way to do that is to put the word global, so is to define the variable, but define it with the word global. So global day of the week, and I don't need that semicolon. As long as I've said I want to use that global variable day of the week, now when I change day of the week, it will receive the change. So day of the week will get whatever I put in here. And it'll also, if I want to use it here in this particular function, I'm going to have to do the same thing. Global day of the week. So now, day of the week is going to print out Monday. It's then going to be changed here. Since it's global in scope, it's going to receive the change. So day of the week will have the new value. And then once we're done with greeting, this will print out that global variable. Let's just run that and see if that happens. So getting kind of tired of putting in a name and an age. So now Monday got printed because we've said I want to use that global variable. It printed it, and now it's going to allow us to make the change. So today is really Tuesday, and then hit enter. And you can see that Tuesday then got reflected in our day of the week. Okay, so that's a little confusing. So let's just kind of take it back to the beginning. Okay, any variable that I use within a function is called a local variable. It is only available within the function. Okay. Any variable that I declare outside of the functions is available as a global variable. Let me just write the word global beside of it, global. And as long as I don't make any changes to that variable's value is available to all of these functions. Okay? And then the last bit of that is, if I really do want to make a change to this global variable, I need to put the word global in front of the variable in the function that I want to access that global variable to make the change. So here I've said I want to access and make a change to day of the week, which is a global variable. So I'm intentionally trying to change the global variable. Once it's changed, day of the week has a new value. When I come back to the main, because I've also declared this day of the week, I want to use that global day of the week. And notice those names have to all match. Because I'm trying to access that global variable, then I can print it from here. And actually, because it's a print and I'm not changing it, I even don't need to use that global. Remember, if I have a global variable that I'm not trying to change in a function, I don't have to call the global. It should just be available to us. So let's run that one more time. So we're going to change day of the week to Tuesday, and you can see that Tuesday, in fact, changed. So we'll use the word global if we need to make a change to the global. Okay, that's a lot. So scope of variables, local or global. Global, as long as it's just printing, is available to everybody within the function. If I need to make a change to that global variable, then I need to declare that global variable within the function that I wish to make the change to that variable, to that value. So that's a lot, but we're working on it. We're growing and we're getting variable scoped. So in the next video, we'll look at another way that we can handle data changing in our functions.